my previous video, I mentioned why you need to start a podcast, but in today's video, I would be explaining how to start a successful podcast. I have created and I have kickstarted a successful podcast for some of my clients. So stick with me to the end of this video as I'll be giving you the step-by-step in details of what I have done for them, and their podcast is up and running successfully. My name is Seun Olatunji, and let's get started. If you want to start a podcast and you have no clue of how to get started, I am glad you found this video, because this is a video you've been looking for, because I have helped a handful of people to create their podcast. So also I'm going to help you to create your podcast, and it will be running smoothly and successfully in this video. So today I'll be giving 5 steps. I like to make my videos in stepwise manner. So I'm going to give 5 steps in order to create a podcast for a beginner and get it running smoothly. There is no point when you start something and it's not running smoothly. So I'm not going to stop at starting with you. I'm going to go as far as running smoothly with you. And everything I'll be mentioning in this video is principle based. It is what is actionable. It is something that is doable. It is what I've done to launch podcasts for people. If you do what I'll be teaching in this video, you would also be able to launch your own podcast. So quickly, step 1 is name your own podcast and do your podcast art. I mean your artwork, like a cover, a design poster for your podcast. When choosing a name for your podcast, I don't want you to overthink it. I don't want you to overdo it, because it's something that can even be changed later on. A lot of podcasts started with a different name, and along the line, when they began to narrow down, they changed their podcast name to meet their content and to resonate with their target audience. So do not overthink it. Basically, I would say think of a word and then add your name to it. For example, talk with Peter, Peter's voice, John's voice, John speak, Mr. Peter explains, vibe with Sarah, Margaret's microphone, Margaret's corner, Mary's studio, whatever you want to do. Just give it a name, and then you can attach your name to it so that people will know, people will be able to attach a name behind the voice, because most times it is your voice they will be hearing. So they need a name, like an identity, to match up with the voice they are listening to. So even when your voice crosses the shores of your continent, people will be able to attach your name with it. So later on, when they get to see your face, they'll be able to match your face with your name and with your voice. And then on the other hand is the podcast artwork. You don't really need sophisticated artwork. If you go to canva.com and you search for podcast artwork, it will give you lots of templates which you can easily edit the name, change the color to suit your brand color, and then change the image on it. You can put your face, you can put whatever picture you want to. It already comes in the standard size and dimension. You don't need to alter the size and the dimension. However, the free version of Canva will offer you this, but if you choose not to use that, you can go to freelance website like Upwork or Fiverr and get a cheap freelance graphic designer who you'll be able to tell what you want and what you want them to do for you, and they will create it for you at an affordable rate. Bear in mind, there are some certain specifications that it must meet if you are doing it outside Canva. It must be 3000 by 3000 pixels. It has to be RGB color, and the third one, it has to be in JPG format or a PNG format. But if you are doing this on Canva, like I said, it comes automatically in the standard format. You need not to worry about all of these specifications. So that being said and done, create your podcast name and your podcast artwork. Before I go to the second one, when you create your podcast name and your artwork, you need to know that you have to upload your podcast on a distribution website or a host. This is where you upload just once, and it helps you to connect to other platforms where people listen to podcasts. For example, if you use Podcastle as the host, once you upload your audio there, you get to link it to AudioMac, to Apple Podcast, to Spotify, and a lot of other podcast listening platforms, just with just one upload, which is quite good and easy. Then secondly, record your first set of episodes. I like to say that record your first 4 episodes, and then you can upload them and schedule them to drop once weekly. This is for consistency's sake, because if you record one session and then you upload and you're waiting for another week, life and situations will happen. Things will happen. Your phone can go bad, your microphone can go bad, you can be out of internet, you can be sick, you can lose your voice, you can have headache, you can have mental stress, disaster can happen, bad situation or whatever can happen that will give you thousands of reasons not to do the second episode or the third episode. But if you manage to make 4 episodes at once and then you upload it and you schedule it, you've bought time for yourself over the next 4 weeks, and that's like batch production. You've bought time for yourself for the next 4 weeks, and you get to find your way around it and begin to work on other episodes. So when you're sick, obviously you're there before 4 weeks. If something happens and you need time to relax and recover, obviously you do that before 4 weeks. It's not the standard, but I like to say that record 4 and then schedule them weekly. Your audience want consistency, and that's all you need to do. When I say record your first 4 episodes, you necessarily do not need sophisticated gadgets for this. You can speak directly into your phone's recorder. You can use a lapel microphone like I'm using. You can use the earpiece or the earbud that comes with your phone. And if you are buoyant enough financially, you can go for all these condenser microphones. But it's not until you get the big condenser microphones before you make your podcast. Once you record it, you export your audio to platforms where they use AI, artificial intelligence, to filter the sound for you for free. You can use Podcastoo, you can use Audacity, you can use audio.ai. All you got to do is upload your audio there. It will filter, in one click, it will filter your audio for you, and then you download it back, and you have an audio that is fine, pleasing to the hearing, free from noise, and ready to be listened by your audience. Another thing you can do is, when you're recording your audio, put your phone before you, look into your camera and speak to it. Capture interesting moments like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds that you can use for your YouTube shorts, for your Instagram reels and Facebook reels, for TikTok and all of that for promotion. I will get there. Just record first 4 episodes. Another thing about your podcast when you are creating it, from research, it's been said that when there are multiple speakers on that pod, it's more engaging rather than you doing the solo talks. Because when you have different speakers on a certain subject matter, they have different opinions, they have different perspectives, they have different views about the subject matter, and they are all bringing it as one and blending. So your listeners get to hear varieties of quality of content, and it increase the engagement. It's more engaging when 2-3 people are having a smooth chat than when you alone, you are just doing the solo talking. If possible, get 2 or more speakers on your podcast. That brings me to step 3, which is editing your podcast. One good thing about podcast is that it is very easy to edit. This is unlike YouTube video, where you have to do smooth transitions, where you have to use animations, where you have to put certain effects and all of that. In editing podcast, basically what you are cutting out is the bluffs, the and the long silence. Basically, those are the things you want to cut out, because sometimes your speakers are not robots. Sometimes, even when they've jotted down what they want to say, they think, they boot, and you don't want your listener to start waiting for the long silence of about 30 seconds, or maybe someone is coughing and someone is probably drinking water and the throat is gurgling or something. You don't want your audience to start listening to that. So you can cut all of those places away. Or maybe your child makes a noise from the background, or somebody distracted you, or somebody shouted your name and you needed to respond and all of that. So you cut out just those places that you don't want your audience to listen to. Then when you are editing also, you can add copyright-free music in the background. When you import the music, you reduce the volume so that the music would not override what you are saying. The essence of adding the music is just to give them a feel, to set a rhythm, to give them a tone throughout the conversation. That's what the background music is meant for. It's not meant for them to be dancing or to be vibing alongside. What you want to say is the most important. The music at the background is just to set the tone, the rhythm, to give them a feel, to give them a certain rhythm. I like to say it is called vibe, so just set the vibe for your listeners with background music, and that's all you need to do about editing. It's very simple. And another platform where you can do it in podcast. You can do it even on the free version. It's very easy. Like at the snap of your finger, you've done it. Having done with step 3, then the next thing is you have to publish your podcast. You have to publish your podcast, and one mistake you don't want to do is publish and leave it. You have to publish and promote it. Give each episode of your podcast a title and probably even number it serially. For example, if you are running a series on mental health, and you can be like Mental Health Talks with Peter, episode 1, Mental Health Talks with Mary, episode 2, Mental Health Talk with Paul, episode 3. Number it, name your title, name each episode and number it serially. It is good for organization, and it is good for your listeners to also follow. In case they miss any series, they know what to look for. And it's also good for you as a content creator. In case you are looking for any of your content where you said this, you're able to see what you've done and what you've not done. And then when you are giving your podcast a title, make sure you do keyword research, because this is what will make it visible when people are searching for it. If your podcast is talking about money making opportunities online, make sure that the keyword is there, so that when people are searching podcast on making money online, your podcast episodes will come out. So do your keyword research, and don't make the title too long. If you have a long title, you can paste it in ChatGPT and tell it to paraphrase it for you and suggest a shorter version of this title for you. It will do it for you in seconds. So then you publish on, like I gave you, Podcastoo, and then you connect it to AudioMac, to Spotify, to Apple Podcasts, to wherever you want people to listen to it. And one other brilliant thing is that you can upload it on YouTube. YouTube has a podcast. If you go to your YouTube studio and you click on create, you see go live, upload video, you will see podcast. You can upload it there as well. I know a lot of people don't know about this, but there is podcast also on YouTube. You can upload your podcast there. Having done that, you don't want to leave it there, because if you leave it there, it's going to die there. If you leave it there, it's going to remain there. So you want to promote it, and this is where it comes. As a beginner, you want to start with free traffic, organic traffic. You don't want to start off with paid promotion. Remember, you are trying to work within a certain little budget, so you don't have the resources. You don't want to start spending loads and bucks of money on paid adverts. So you can share the links to your friends, families, to your colleagues, to your contact on instant messaging, on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on whatever have you. Mind you, I said something earlier on that when you are making your podcast, make a vertical video shot about the most interesting moments. You can upload it on YouTube Shorts, you can upload it on Instagram and Facebook Reels, you can upload it on TikTok. When people listen to this short clip, then you can direct them to the full clip, because they want to follow up that conversation. It's really intriguing, it's really thrilling. They can't wait to finish up the conversation, and then you attach your link and then it send them to your podcast. The same link is what you're going to be sharing on your social media platforms for promotion. If you don't promote your podcast, it's going to remain there. Nobody's going to listen to it. Nobody is going to listen to it. It's like you set up a manufacturing plant where you're manufacturing 1,000 units of vehicle in a year, and you don't promote it, you don't advertise it. Nobody will know what you're doing there. They probably think it's a farm or maybe a recycling company or something. But if you put yourself out there, then people know what you're doing. I like to say that promotion is like, when you don't promote your content, it's like a guy who is interested in a girl and winks at the girl in the dark. Only you know what you're doing. The girl can't see you because it's dark. So you don't stop at publishing. You also go ahead to promote your podcast. Before I end on step 4, it only takes one episode of podcast to gain a follower, to gain a subscriber, to gain a loyal audience. If you don't get them to listen to it, they would not follow you. They will not subscribe to it. You won't build the audience. So every of your podcast episodes needs to be promoted as much as possible in your capacity. So that leads me to the 5th step, which is rinse and repeat. Everything I have said in step 1 to step 4, you rinse it, you polish it, you fine-tune it, you make your content better, and then you repeat the step. If you have watched my videos and some other creators' video, we keep mentioning consistency. We can't but mention it, because consistency is what will keep you going, is what will make you better at what you're doing, and closely followed by value. So I like to merge both of them together by saying you have to consistently be giving value, or you have to consistently be making valuable content, and that's what makes you better, and that's what makes your podcast to gain more listeners. And that's how you can grow from 0 to hero, and that's why you can go from 0 listeners to 100,000 listeners. Remember, over time, there is a time factor. It doesn't happen overnight. So if you have gained one thing, at least one thing from this video, please like this video for me. You can share it to your friends who want to start a podcast and they don't know what to go about it. And then you can subscribe to my channel for more content. In my next video, I'm going to mention how to monetize a podcast. So in my previous video, I've said why you need to start a podcast. In this video, how to start a podcast. In my next video is going to be how to monetize your podcast. Thank you so much for watching. And I like to end my video by saying, be good if you can be good, but if you can't be good for any reason in this world, do not get caught. You see me next on the screen when I drop the next video. Bye-bye.